Hi, this is Zoom In with OAG, and we are still on our framing options. So today I am going to actually frame one of my artworks. So I'm here with Amy to help me choose the perfect frame for an artwork. So Amy, where are we going to start?
Well, it all depends on the sort of feel which you would like to have for the final artwork. One can either frame, for instance, an artwork like this, directly with a traditional frame, which would be something like this. It's a small synthetic. If we're placing it against a black background, you can do it so that you do it with a mount. So it's basically your artwork, a mount with a window cut out, and a frame.
What I like about this is it feels like it brings out the black in the artwork.
Absolutely.
So I kind of like that idea. I love that you can still see the tear in the paper. So this will not be under the mounting board, this will actually be on top of the mounting.
We'll actually mount it on top,
Okay.
because you've got this lovely, you've used a very nice quality paper. So it's got a lovely natural torn edge, and where the paper is actually a little bit large on the top and the bottom, we have something called here we go, a decal edged ripper, and we can recreate the feel all the way around.
Wonderful.
The artwork.
Okay, because I'm not always too fantastic with my spacing.
Well, that's the job of the framer, is to help
with the
correct
spacing.
any small things which need correcting.
So let's just, before we finalize this, you say this is a synthetic frame.
Yes.
So what types of frames do we get?
Okay, basically there are sort of three options which one has. You have your solid woods, which are very, very nice, but they can be expensive. They are usually, this is a range of mainly Keyart. This is an ash, it's a tinted ash. But if you're an artist, unless you know your client, I wouldn't really frame in them, because they will push your price up. I would leave that for someone who buys an unframed artwork to make that decision on, because it's a fair amount of money to spend on on an artwork. If you're framing for yourself, or like I did for a client, I've used one of these on an artwork for a client, and this is a very nice example of what we call a floating frame, a box floating frame. So the artwork, which was printed also on a very similar grammage of paper, it's an etching. It's mounted archivally against foam core and then against a board, and it's been recessed from the glass.
That shadow it casts with the floating effect is beautiful.
This is the actual frame. I blackened the edges myself.
So you can still manipulate the frame?
You can manipulate the frame, yes.
Okay.
I just wanted that because I felt that it brought out a little bit of the darkness in the etching nicely. And it's a beautiful frame, because from the side, when you look, you sometimes only just see this very, very thin profile in the front. So it's a big favourite of mine.
Yeah, I love this too.
I love it.
Okay, so and then you've got.
So that is your solid wood option. Then we have aluminium frames. It's very, very in for people to have a very thin profile in the front, and this can only really be achieved with an aluminium frame.
So you say that is trendy at the moment?
It's very trendy. People love the aluminium frames for a very modern look. So you get almost just like a pencil thin edge in the front.
I like that,
So from a 3mm.
It's also very deep, so it creates that boxed effect.
Yes, absolutely. They come basically from about a 16mm, which I don't have an example of on the table, but all the way through to quite deep. So, and they're very, very strong, of course. So you can do quite large works.
Yeah.
You just need to wear your glass size into consideration, because
for weight.
For weight and also for comfort of handling.
Yeah.
They've even wrapped of the aluminium in a wood.
See, it looks like a beech wood. Yeah.
Yes, it's a wood veneer. It's a real wood, in order to try and get that thin effect on a wood, which you can't actually get with wood, because
it'll just break.
Because of the nature of the wood. Yes. So they've now got some nice wrapped veneers. Then we have a range of synthetic frames. Now, initially when synthetics came out, they were cheap and nasty, but over the years they have really they've increased in strength. They are very well priced, and the foils which they use nowadays no longer look as synthetic. Many people actually think that they are wood.
I know, I look at
Yeah.
this and I don't think that an untrained eye would really spot the difference. And obviously the price is
The price is
a lot cheaper.
There's a difference in price.
Yeah, if I look at them, you get different finishes, different
Absolutely.
colors. It just looks like real wood. Okay.
The only time when I then do prefer solid wood is when you're working with very large artworks, because being a synthetic always has a flex.
Yeah.
So, you know, but your framer will advise you, you know, what they think is, you know, the best type of frame or molding for the work which you wish to frame. That's our job.
So let's see what 3 options we're going to try out here today. We've got the synthetic black frame with a black mounting board.
Black on a black. And that I would tear the edges and do it just as a direct mount.
Okay.
It's quite a slender profile. So what I would do is I would use a foam core backing, because this is probably going to sit directly against your wall. And that's always a very important consideration to take, because walls tend to attract moisture. One doesn't always realize. And if your paper is sitting directly, or your backing is a cardboard and it's sitting directly against the wall, it can eventually transfer moisture through to your artwork if your rebate is not very, very deep. On the larger wood ones like this one, for instance, if I were framing right up against it, it has lots of nice breathing room, so that would not be as much of a worry.
So let's try that one then. That's the key art.
This
I
is
like
the
that. So let's try that with a white mounting board.
So I'm going to, so you can see nicely, if I were to do like this, right up against, you'll see that as I lift it up against the frame, if I was framing directly, unlike that one where I've spaced it, if you turn it over, okay, it will still have glass, you will see that there's a very nice breathing space at the back. So there's a lot of like small technical issues which you need to take into account when you are framing, and which you need to advise your client with.
Because the Kiat brings out the color again. Of
Absolutely.
this.
So
So
like
that's actually also a beautiful option.
Yeah, it's got those lovely warm caramel colours.
Yeah.
So it gives a slightly softer look.
That's what I love about framing. Every time you change the frame, you completely change the look and the feel.
The mood of the artwork.
Yeah, the mood. Yeah.
And I always say to people, there's no only one frame. There's always a variety of frames which can be used to create a different feeling or mood for your artwork.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting. You can subdue an artwork, or you can punch up the colours as well. It's lovely. It's good framing, complements and enhances an artwork.
And now for the one that I've been dying to see.
The
The aluminium. I just love the elegance of the thin frame here. Also, again, it echoes that. I love the dark, the warmth of the wood, but I still feel like the black needs kind of a balance.
Yes.
So I would like to bring this in, and I love the fact that it will look like a box, like a gift.
Absolutely.
So this will look like,
Basically, that comes in there. As we've done with yours, this frame is not really made as a box frame, but we do a certain technique where we're able to create that distance of a box frame, and we raise the artwork slightly so that it looks like it's floating.
yeah, I
In
love
the
the
frame.
floating effect, yeah.
And people just love that. It's clean, it's graphic, it's
Yeah.
punchy.
It's trendy and elegant as well. That's
Yeah.
what I love. I think
It's
we're
always
going
a
to
huge
stick
favourite.
to this frame.
Okay, lovely.
So
It's a good
do your
choice.
thing.
I shall.
Okay. Anything else you want to say before we start with the real work?
Well, just to people regarding framing is, you know, not to be afraid of framing. Find somebody, it's like a hairdresser, find someone you're comfortable with,
Yes.
someone who you feel gives you good advice,
Yeah.
and who knows how to treat your artwork in the correct manner. Your first function of framing is obviously to provide a medium for hanging.
Yeah.
The other is to protect and to complement it.
So Amy, tell us from a technical point of view, what was the most difficult jobs you've been working on?
Well, many.
Sure.
I always say that framing is solving somebody else's problems,
It's
and
true.
that is very often the case. I will just take a couple of examples. sometimes one works with artworks which are incredibly large, and that is always a huge challenge, especially in a studio space which is not that large. I did a mirror for a client where he put together 5 assorted moldings, and we had to build struts across this table because it was just so big that it didn't even fit anywhere close on the table.
And you were still willing to take the job.
I did, and what happens when you build up 5 moldings, you have to keep building up the backing because you need, it's technically quite difficult. I had help from Richard and from Bernie who worked alongside me, and we actually managed to do it without a single redo and no mistake. We were all surprised. That was one example. Then another example close to home was an artwork of yours called the Snake Eagle. Where you took 2 images and you wanted to be able to view both images, see the one image from one side and the other from the other side. You combined 2 images and you folded them on a 45 degree.
Aren't you glad you didn't have to do the folding?
I am eternally grateful to you for that. And it was to actually frame it and make it work. And that it was technically quite a challenge, but I love challenges. I always say the ones which make you think are the ones which I really enjoy.
Yes.
And that was a challenge.
Well, there you have it. Thanks for joining us for Demystifying Framey with Amy from Amy's Frames. Thanks for your time, and we will be showing you the final artwork soon.